Hafiday. My name is Chris Leongoro, and I am an instructional coach with the Guam Department of Education. And today's video will be focusing on cooperative learning, what it is, and the importance of using it in today's classroom. Okay, let's begin. So our topic for today is going to be cooperative learning. What is cooperative learning? So cooperative learning is the process of breaking a classroom of students into small groups so they can discover a new concept together and help each other learn, right? So it's all about working with one another. Everybody is important in this process of cooperative learning, right? We cooperate with one another. Cooperative learning versus group work. Now, oftentimes we could see where people can get confused between the two. There is an actual difference between group work and cooperative learning. So here what you're looking at is a list that compares the two, right? So with group work, we have a division of work. That means each person is given specific assignments. Where cooperative learning is also, they could divide the work up, but it's very dependent on positive interdependence, right? It requires each other to work with one another. Even though you might have a specific job or task that is assigned to you, you still need the support of the others in order for your part to be successful and overall for the whole group's success, right? So we want to be sure that the difference is not just, okay, you go and do your side and then just bring it back when you're done. We collaborate with cooperative learning. There's collaboration and reliance on one another in order to be successful for the overall project or assignment that's given. Group work has a lot of independent work. You kind of go on your own and you do your own thing, versus cooperative learning, it promotes collaboration. As I was saying, is we want to make sure that we are constantly working with one another, and we need everybody's input to be sure that the assignment is successful and the project is a success. For example, we want to be sure that, let's say we're at a fiesta, right? We don't want to have a plate that has just one really good dish, right? It's dependent on, we want to ensure that we need everything to be successful in order for this fiesta to be successful. So, for example, I wouldn't want to be having a meal where the red rice is fantastic, but everything else just kind of falls flat, right? We want to make sure that I have the red rice, I have the barbecue chicken and the barbecue steak and the chicken kelaguen and what have you, right? Even the dessert. So all of it is reliant on everybody being sure that they contribute their part and work with one another and create a plan and support one another. In group work, there is group accountability, and with cooperative learning, there's individual accountability. We got to be sure that each and every person contributes, right? Just like in a team, if another example would be, if you're playing a sport, you could have an all-star player, but if you're playing a group sport like basketball, you can't just have one really good player. Yes, they might have a little bit of success, but for the team to have the best success, everybody needs to contribute and do their part, even down to the coaches. With group work, there is no set structure. Okay, it's kind of just given, divide the work up, and it's given, versus cooperative learning, structured to benefit all students, right? We want to make sure that there's a structure and a plan in place. Group work, emphasis is only on the product, right? What's the end product, and that's about it. Where cooperative learning, emphasis is on the process and the product, and that's what as I mentioned earlier, that we want to be sure that everybody is contributing to their part and working along with one another. So the process is very important, and ultimately have a really good product. Now, what are some of the barriers, right? What are some of the things that might come into play of using cooperative learning daily? Because as wonderful as cooperative learning is, there are some things you have to keep in mind that could be a struggle. One, it takes too much time. It does take a lot of time because of all of that working with one another. Sometimes with group work, it could be quicker because you just give them each your assignment, you do your work, turn it in. Where with cooperative learning, there's a lot of working with one another and collaborating. Cooperative learning can also be noisy because of that reliance on interdependence and working along with others and ensuring that we are collaborating can cause there's a lot of talking going on, so they can become noisy. Versus if they're just given their own assignments, they're on their own, they're not interacting as much. Some of the barriers could be lack of structure. So if you're not careful and you don't have a structure in place or a plan in place, it can make it a larger struggle and ultimately be unsuccessful. Confusion is another barrier where students can be lost and confused as to what they're supposed to do, and because the roles are not necessarily always defined right away, they could be and if there's a lack of structure, confused as to what they need to do in terms of being successful. Or with students who are not used to, or even people who are not used to working with others and not sure how to go about suddenly having to rely on other people for their success. It can also feel out of control because of the noise taking a lot of time, and if you're not careful, it could get out of control and people could become off task. So you have to be sure that there is a structure in place, and hopefully that'll diminish the confusion and there'll be more of a sense of control. And the last barrier, and there could be more, but the last barrier on this list is sometimes it can be difficult for a teacher or a leader on how to incorporate the cooperative learning, right? Because you need to have a structure, you need to have a plan. Sometimes it can feel easier to not do it. However, it is a very important skill for students to learn, because working with one another it helps students and people to grow in terms of socially and emotionally working with one another, and ultimately producing a higher end product, right? Like the saying goes, two brains are better than one. So if you have more and everyone's relying on one another and doing their part, they in turn can have a better success overall, and can help them in the future when they move on to past their school phase and they move into the job force, where they're able to interact and work with other people with high success. So why you should use cooperative learning? Why is it important for you to incorporate this? Well, it helps teachers lay the foundation for student success in a world that depends on collaboration and cooperation. So even as an adult, I often see where the challenges where people do not know how to work with one another. They prefer to just be on their own, and ultimately they're stuck because their inability to work with one another causes a lot of conflict and issues. And sometimes the task at hand or the job at hand does not get completed, or is done but not done well. And it's often because their inability to collaborate and rely on that interdependence. Another reason is it provides opportunities for students to interact in ways that enhance and deepen their learning. So you're not just, it's wonderful because now students and people are able to learn from one another, learn from each other, and that can help them enhance their understanding and knowledge, especially when they're learning from their peers, right? If if when they're interacting, they have because they're working with, typically in cooperative learning, they're working with people of their own age and group, right? Classmates, co-workers, things of that sort. Then it helps them to enhance and deepen their understanding and learning, because oftentimes when you're working with a peer, the ones who really understand what's going on are able to utilize language that their peers will be able to understand. Increases motivation for learning is another reason. So a lot of times when the cooperative learning is successful, students are more excited and they become motivated to learn, and a lot of times it's a lot more fun than sitting in a classroom or in your place where you're just by yourself all the time. So having this opportunity to work on projects together, you get to gain this sense of confidence, right? And another reason is students develop a sense of positive interdependence. So being able to trust your teammate, to trust your classmate, to trust your partner, it helps them to develop that sense of interdependence and that sense of not being alone. So all of these things can assist, and all of this can be taught through using cooperative learning.